Hello there! To continue learning intermediate Python topics on the Future Programmer YouTube channel, this video is all about the property decorator in Python programming, which deals with instance attributes and object-oriented programming. Without further ado, let's get started. If you have learned another object-oriented programming language before, like C++ or Java, then you have probably learned about the concept of getters and setters in these languages. The reason why these special methods exist in other languages is largely due to the common practice of making instance attributes private. And while Python does not have access modifiers like public and private, so we can't make instance fields private, there is still tons of other benefits to using getters and setters. Today's lesson is about the property decorator, which allows us to define property getters and setters, as well as deleters in Python. So let's first take a look at a class that does not have the @property decorator. So here we have a class called person. It has one method, the constructor, the init method, which takes 4 parameters, self, and then name, age, and phone number. So this is modeling a person. And we're assigning these 3 parameters to 3 instance attributes here. If we make an instance of the person class with this as name, this as age, and this as phone number, we get the person P. And we can directly use what is known as dot notation to access the name attribute of the person instance P like this, and we can print out p.name and change p.name to be a different value. So we can change the value of Josh to John. We can change the value of p.name to become a new value. So running this code, we'll see that initially p.name is equal to equal to Josh, and then p.name, after we modify it, it will become John. Now, this is very convenient for the most part, but there are some slight compromises. So in this example, we can see that we initially print out p.h, that is perfectly fine, but then because we're directly accessing p.h, there is no control over what value it can take. We can change p.h to become a negative value, negative 200, which is probably not a person's age. And we can change it, and we'll see that Python does not object since we don't have any regulation over the modification of these instance attributes. And that is where getters and setters can be very helpful. In this class, we can see we have a new class defined with the same name, class person. It has 3 methods. So we're just dealing with the attribute age, where we have removed the name and the phone number attributes. So we have the init method with self and age, and we're setting self._age to become age. Now the reason for that is because we're going to use getters and setters, we're adding a leading underscore to the instance attribute age, which by convention is telling other programmers that this should not be accessed directly. So by putting an underscore here, convention states that, the convention states that an attribute or method with a leading underscore should not be accessed or modified out of its own class. So we're providing the getAge method, which returns self._age, and we're providing the setAge method, which changes the age attribute to a new value. So instead of accessing self._age, we're accessing and modifying this attribute using these 2 methods. So getAge takes self and it returns the value of self._age. This is just simply returning the value. And then the definition of the setAge method takes self and a new age value. In its method body, we have an if-else statement. It checks, is age greater than or equal to 0? If it is probably a valid age, so we're saying that self._age is the new age value that we passed in. Otherwise, we're saying we're going to print out value, whatever is passed in, is invalid. So this is going to make sure that the new value of the person's age can only be valid. So we can make a new person P, which has an age of 29, and then we can just print out the person's age, and then we can change it to negative 200 and see if that works, and then we print out age again. Let's take a look at what will happen. So we'll see 29, and then on line 17, we try to change it to an invalid number, negative 200. So it says value negative 200 is invalid, as we can see as instructed on this line right here. And we can see that p.getAge still returns 29 because age is not changed by this line. If we have a valid age, 75, we'll see that it does indeed change the age from 29 to 75. So the getter gets the value and the setter sets the value. Pretty simple. Now let's talk about the property decorator in Python, which allows us to create and use getters and setters in a more readable syntax in Python. And here's how. So again, we have the class person, which deals with the age of a person. We still have the same instance attribute, self._age, which is set to whatever is passed in here. And here's where it gets interesting. We have three methods with the same name. We have age, and age. But notice how it has three different decorators. Decorators is a topic that we covered in a previous video of this series, so feel free to check that out if you need a review on that. So we have three different decorators. The first one is decorated by the decorator at property. This is the getter. So we're saying that this age right here is a property of a person, which it is, right? And then this is going to return self._age. This is this is the age setter method. We can see that we have at age.setter. So we're saying that this is the setter method of the age property, which does what it did before, right? We check if the age is valid and then we assign it if it is. And here we have the age deleter. So at age.deleter, it will delete the self._age attribute. And here we make a person P with an age of 29 once again. Running this code, nothing is outputted, and now let's talk about things more in detail. So we have the getter. In these three lines, the most important is probably the at property line here. So it's indicating that this method right here is a getter. And the rest of the method, these two lines, just returns self._age. And because we have this method defined and decorated with this line right here, we can access the age property just like here. So we don't have to call p.age and we don't have to put parentheses around. We can just do print p.age. So we'll see 29 printed out like right here. And here we have the setter method. So this line, this decorator, is indicating that the method is the setter method of the age property. And this method takes self and a new age, and if that new age is valid, it is assigned to the age property, and then we have an error message printed out if it is not. So we can once again access p.age just by writing this instead of parentheses, because we can just treat this like any other attribute basically. And then we can also do the same when modifying it. p.age is equal to 75, and then print out p.age. And then we change p.age to be negative 200, and then we can print out its value once again. We'll see 29 is changed to 75, and on line 7, we're providing an invalid negative 200 value, which Python tells us because we defined it to do that, and then our p.age value is still 75. Lastly, we have our deleter method, which this decorator right here is indicating that the method is the deleter method of the age property, so we can use it to delete that property of an instance. So here we first print out p.age, and then we're using the del, the delete keyword, to delete the p.age attribute, which we'll see. Indeed, we have 75, and then after we delete p.age, it is no longer a valid attribute, so it says person object has no attribute _age. Now, to conclude, the at property decorator in Python allows us to define getters, setters, and deleters for instance attributes so that accessing and modification to these attributes are regulated through intermediaries. So this is just one simple example of how we can use the at property decorator to do that. And notice how it is at property here, but here and here, we're actually defining it to use at and then the name of our attribute or the property, and then we write .setter for the setter method and .deleter for the deleter method. And there you have it, the property decorator, which is the Pythonic way of defining getters and setters in Python. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section. And if you found this video to be useful, please consider subscribing down below and giving this video a thumbs up. With that said, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in more tutorials.